Good evening, everyone. Sorry we're starting a little bit late, but I want to welcome everyone to tonight's city council meeting. It is for April 1st, 2021. It's currently about 10 minutes after 5. If everyone would please rise as Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales leads us in the invocation, which will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by City Secretary Jan Llewellyn.
Pray with me, please. Lord, as we gather together as neighbors, family, and friends, we invite you into our lives. Father, who through your only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, overcame death and opened to us the gates of everlasting life, grant that we will celebrate with joy the day of the Lord's resurrection, and may we be raised from the death of sin by your life-giving Spirit. And Lord, may the hope of your resurrection color our days. May the promise of your Spirit working in us light up our lives. May the love you reveal to us shape our giving. May the truth in your word guide our journey each day. And may the joy of your kingdom fill our homes and hearts as we gather together underneath the banner of your life as we continue to celebrate this glorious resurrection. And as we celebrate Jesus Christ rising to new life, we gather in prayer and ask that you grant our leaders, nationally and locally, our mayor, our city council, city staff, and all those involved, the wisdom to know what we must do, the will to want to do it, the courage to undertake it, the perseverance to continue to do it, and the strength to complete it. Lord, we pray for our country's safety. We ask you to bless all the first responders, our police, our firemen, the doctors and nurses, and all health caseworkers who are given those suffering from the COVID-19 illnesses and all other illnesses. Keep them safe. Again, Father, we thank you for the coronavirus vaccine that will save many lives of suffering and hardships. May the glory of the promise of the joyous time of this year bring peace and happiness to all our residents. And may Christ, our risen Savior, always be there by our side to bless us abundantly and be our loving guide. Father, we thank you and love you. In Jesus' most precious name, we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. Now we come to our time for public comments. Any citizens who wish to desire the council on any matter may do so as long as you signed up prior to this meeting. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the council. We have a couple of folks who've signed up. First is Ms. Bobby Thompson.
Good evening. Mayor Davis, Judy Morales, and the City Council. We, the News 8 on the Move team, Bobby and Chester Thompson, live at 904 Henderson Street. We would like to have a grocery store and a bank in East Temple. We don't have one. Minister Carlotta Davis, who is deceased now, this was her dream also. So we are still going on with the dream. Please help us. We need a bank, Extraco, State Bank, First National, Bureau Bank, Compass Bank. What about a grocery store? H-E-B, Walmart, Brookshire Brothers, Winn-Dixie, David Supermarket, Red and White, Mini-Mac. Give us what everyone else have. When it snowed, we didn't have no store to go to in our area. There's plenty of vacant lots all over East Temple to build a bank and a grocery store. Thank you. I'd like to give this to each one of y'all. Mayor Davis, Judy Morales, and Ms. Myers.
Bobby.
Thank you, ma'am. Next on the list is Ronnie, is it Machek? Is that correct? Step on up, please, sir.
My name's Ronnie Mossick. I live at 2500 East Highway 36,
You
Temple.
can lower your mask if you would like. If you'd rather not, that's fine.
Anyway, I'm up here for the 2021-0014-0. The request of Agriculture Planning Development to General Truck Travel Center. That's at my back door, sir. I want to ask everybody here, y'all eat food, and I'm sure y'all enjoy it. I'm going to give you some averages on, because I've watched all my life corn pop up and grow and wheat pop up and grow in that field. An average acre produces 105 bushels of corn at 48 pounds. 1 bushel of corn product,
Mayor,
which can be,
I'm sorry, I think this is a public hearing item.
I understand.
Okay.
So you may speak during this 3 minutes, but you'll be limited to 3 minutes.
okay,
But whenever we come up to that item on the agenda, you can step forward then
Oh,
and speak as
okay.
long as you would like at that point.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I
You,
didn't know.
you can finish your thoughts now as long as you stay around 3 minutes. You're
Oh,
fine.
I was just given the averages on the corn. 1 bushel of corn products feeds 50 people, and approximately 42 acres, that's 4,410 bushels. And so if 1 bushel feeds 50 to 4,410 of the corn products feed 220,500 people. And then with wheat, you have 32 bushels per acre. So on the average of 42 acres would be 1,344 bushels, which 9,000 people per day can eat a wheat product. So with 1,344 bushels, that's 12,096,000 people per day can have wheat products. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on. Now it's time for special recognitions. I'd like to recognize April as Temple Community Development Month. Ms. Glover. And team. I have a proclamation. Step on up. All right, it is my pleasure to read this proclamation. So from the office of the mayor of the city of Temple, the proclamation reads, whereas the city of Temple and its Housing and Community Development Department have partnered with nonprofit and neighborhood-based organizations to address neighborhood and housing needs. And whereas the city of Temple has clearly demonstrated the capacity to administer the CDBG program to identify, prioritize, and resolve pressing local challenges. Whereas the Temple CDBG program has provided more than $1 million in local support in fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21, including direct support for small businesses and local citizens impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas Housing and Community Development Department actively works to educate Temple citizens about the Fair Housing Act and encourages all of its residents to participate in planning and program implementation. And now therefore I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim April 1st through April 30th, 2021 as Temple Community Development Month in the City of Temple, Texas, and urge all citizens to join in recognizing the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Community Development Block Grant Program, and the City of Temple Housing and Community Development Department. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this first day of April, 2021. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay.
Bring them to us so we can take pitch in with your heart and your hand. Encourage you to look at our website. There's a great calendar. Last day, if you've done one of them, our community will be better. We encourage you to take some of those practices. Live that way throughout the rest of the year.
Very good. You bet. Thank you, Ms. Glover. Thank you, Pete. You bet. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. All items are listed that are listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted in one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from that consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be discussed separately. Through our workshop this evening, we discussed this, and I don't think anything needs to be pulled. So at this time, council, I will entertain a motion on items 4A through 4L.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 4A through 4L.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote.
Tim, mine's not working.
Here, mine came.
Hmm?
Mine came up. Did yours?
Nope, yet.
It says you
Well, I did a good job, didn't
voted. The phantom vote.
I? Yeah.
So I have here that this item number 4 passes 5 votes to 0. You okay with that?
I'm perfectly fine with it.
Okay. All right, very good. Then let's move on to our regular agenda. Item number 5 reads, this is the second and final reading to consider adopting an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to allow sales of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption at 8774 West Adams Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe this was pulled for voting purposes, but I'd be happy to go through the presentation again if you like.
Would anyone like the presentation redone?
I do not.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilors, any discussion that you would like to have on item number 5 before voting? Nothing? All right, then at this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval on item number 5.
I
Make-
move for adoption of the conditional use permit as presented.
I'll second it.
Were you about to say something?
Oh,
Uh,
well,
Yes, I would, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Regards to that package store permit, we live close by to that location, sir. There are already 3 different liquor stores in the same close by vicinity of 2 to 3 mile radius. Do you all really think there needs to be another liquor store close by to that? And there are multiple gas stations right there. What is that? Dollar General is right there.
Mayor,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. This is not a public hearing. The public hearing was at your last meeting.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure is. All right, then, do I need to address the,
I think
The attendee?
we can just explain to him that the public hearing was last weekend or the last meeting.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I was just informed that the public hearing was held last week and or 2 weeks ago, and this item is simply up for a vote without a public hearing. My apologies for that. So we did have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We had a second by Councilmember Walker. So council, if you would, please cast your vote.
Alan, I'm not getting the voting screen. I can raise my hand, but I haven't touched a thing.
Voting.
Yeah, it's reading my mind, obviously. Hmm? But you can take the vote because that's the way I would have voted.
Okay. All right, this item passes 4 votes in favor and 1 against. We'll now move on to item number 6, which this is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving on a conditional use permit and development site plan for a minor vehicle servicing facility located at Lot 6, Block 1, Temple Mall Edition, replat number 1, addressed as 721 Southwest HK Dodgen Loop. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is for the existing Discount Tire. And so top left-hand corner, you can see the site, probably familiar with it. It's at the edge of the mall property and right across Lowe's Drive from Lowe's Hardware and et cetera. So this is a conditional use permit for minor vehicle service as required by the recent mall PD ordinance that you all saw last year, 2020-5072, which would allow this to be a legally conforming use for minor vehicle servicing. And so the applicant didn't have to apply, but they wanted to make sure that they would have the option in the future to expand and just to be legally conforming. And just a side note, this is located within a mixed-use activity center per the comprehensive plan. And so y'all may remember that about the mall. And so just a few photos just to rekindle your memory about what that property looks like. And of course, as you know, a conditional use permit does require a site plan, which we have before you, that confirms more than adequate parking, also existing landscaping, and then in terms of trash enclosure for all compliance with existing code requirements. And so 4 notices were sent out and 1 was returned, and it was the applicant. So there were none returned from other property owners. So staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit subject to the 4 conditions. And that is still compliance with the mall ordinance, as well as section 5323 of the UDC that addresses minor vehicle servicing facilities. That I, as the Director of Planning and Development, would have some authority to administratively approve minor adjustments to the site plan if they so choose. And then that significant changes would come back to P&Z and City Council. At the March 1st meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously 8-0 to recommend approval of the conditional use permit per staff's recommendation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler?
Yeah, Brian, I just wondered if they're going to be minor vehicle servicing, are there going to be any screening to hide the cars that they're waiting to be served?
Good question, Councilmember Morales. They are not proposing to change their current practice at all. It's just tire changing and balancing and just tire work. And that's all done inside the building, inside bays.
Anybody else? All right, then at this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. All right. There being none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 6.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve item 6 as presented by Mr. Chandler, adopting the ordinance for the conditional use permit for this site.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 6 passes 5 votes to 0. Item number 7 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning request from Ag District to Single Family 3 on 24.1 plus or minus acres located at 1950 and 1980 East French Avenue in Temple, Texas, near the northwest corner of East French Avenue and North 42nd Street. Mr. Chandler.
Okay, thanks again, Mayor. Maybe I get some help advancing the first slide. I think it's just a little rusty. Thank you. All right, so here the 24 acres and change that you see west of North 42nd Street, also near East French. And so this is a proposal for future residential development, and the applicant owns the existing single-family 3 property that you can see to the south and southeast, shown in yellow. And then, of course, single-family 3 allows for home sites at a minimum of 4,000 square feet. And a subdivision plat would be required prior to building permit. And according to the future land use map of our comprehensive plan, the proposal is compliant along with the residential and neighborhood service designation. And so just a quick summary in terms of compliance with the comprehensive plan, compatibility with surrounding zoning and uses. Public facilities are available, and also just compliance with thoroughfare plan. So 5 notices were mailed out, and we have not received any responses to date. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning for single family 3. And planning and zoning recommended unanimous approval on March 1st for staff recommendation. And I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chandler, if I looked at the plat right, these are 40-foot lots, 40 by 100.
They would still be minimum of 50-foot lots, but the dimensions, they couldn't exceed 4,000 square feet. Minimum of 4,000
Yeah,
square
could
feet.
not be
Yes.
less than 4,000 square.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, any other questions? All right. Item 7 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the platform. There's nobody on the platform and no one coming forward. So at this time, I will close the public hearing on item number 7. Council, is there any further discussion? If not, then I will entertain a motion on item number 7.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request, rezoning request.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Williams. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 7 passes 5 votes to 0. Item number 8 is the first reading of public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning with a development site plan from commercial to planned development multifamily 2 on 18.149 plus or minus acres and a planned development on 4 acres, planned development commercial on 4 plus or minus acres in the Nancy Chance survey, abstract number 5, located in Temple, Texas, in Bell County and addressed as 5719 West Adams Avenue. Mr. Chandler.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And so this is, of course, multifamily 2, planned development and planned development commercial that is requested. You can see in the left-hand corner that this wraps around essentially the Christian Brothers Automotive and also Stripes. And then, so of course, has Kegley access in addition to West Adams. And so here's the site plan that is part of this request. And so when you look at that, you can see where the proposed PD commercial, which of course is currently zoned commercial, this would add a planned development so that future development on that site would include a site plan that comes to P&Z and you all. And one of the reasons for that is because this location, like the mall that we just saw in the previous case, is proposed as mixed-use activity center within the comprehensive plan, which is for higher density mix of uses and strong connectivity between all those different uses and higher levels of landscaping and architectural standards, et cetera. So as part of that, you can see the site plan for what is proposed as 208 types of townhomes, 208 units. And I'll show you some elevations in a second. But also what is shown on here is the floodplain and potential extension of the Pepper Creek Trail as part of this. And so the plat right now is being reviewed by the Development Review Committee as well as TxDOT for access onto West Adams. And so looking at the future land use map, I mentioned the mixed use activity center. So bottom left-hand corner, you can see that dashed circle generally shows that location, the intersection between Kegley and West Adams. And then Trails Master Plan, you can see the dashed line there would be a proposed continuation of the Pepper Creek Trail. And so that is something you'll see in the conditions that we are recommending working with the developer to at least at the plat stage, dedicate a trail easement and then work with them for future expansion of the trail system. And so here is a view of it from Adams, kind of where that access would be that TxDOT's reviewing. And this is looking towards the Pepper Creek Trail and of course the pedestrian bridge there. So this is the general location of where the Pepper Creek Trail in the future would be located. Of course, Christian Brothers Automotive that we mentioned. And so proposed elevations, you can see significant number of garages. And actually the bottom right-hand corner is a proposed dog bath station, dog bath house to go along with the dog park that would be adjacent to the future Pepper Creek Trail. So 17 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. One was returned in disagreement and a property owner on the other side of Kegley. And 3 notices were returned in agreement. 2 of those, I should point out, were by the applicant. And so staff recommends the following conditions: construction of 6-foot sidewalks along Adams and South Kegley. Also, prior to permitting, recording the trail easement like we talked about. along the Pepper Creek Trail and outside, just right outside the floodplain. Also, that the development on the PDC portion would include a site plan that returns to planning and zoning and to city council in the future, as well as just overall substantial compliance with the current site plan that is before you today. So staff recommends approval of that request for the 18.149 acres to multifamily 2 with a planned development, and the 4 acres that is currently commercial, adding a planned development to it. And so planning and zoning at the March 15th meeting voted 6-0 to recommend approval per staff's recommendations. And I'm available for any questions that you have.
Mr. Chandler, it's anticipated that the connection to the Pepper Trail Creek would come under 2305, under the
Yes, sir.
bridge. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Good question.
Yeah, the
And
picture kind of showed it also.
we've had a just preliminary analysis. Even Kevin Beavers, Parks Director, went out there, took a look at it, and there is plenty of clearance. So you
Right in
can't
this-
see it very well from that angle, but there's plenty of clearance to be able to provide that connection under the bridge.
Brian, the
Thank you.
ingress and egress will be shown when the plating process occurs. Ingress, but I mean ingress and egress to Kegley and West Adams.
Yes, ma'am. And so if you look on the site plan and the far right corner that abuts West Adams,
Mhm.
that's the proposed driveway that TxDOT is currently reviewing. But then there would be another connection along Kegley at the southernmost boundary with that thoroughfare.
Those are 2 very busy thoroughfares.
Yes, ma'am. And so they're
Obviously.
maximizing the distance, well, at least along Kegley from the intersection, and West Adams, due to floodplain, that's really the only viable location.
And is that, TxDOT will decide that it's far enough away from the intersection between Kegley and West Adams, the light there?
They would review that, and TxDOT does have pretty strict distance requirements between driveways and intersections.
But we're in the belief that that is the correct distance.
That's our understanding.
And the ingress, the driveway or whatever you want to call it on South Kegley itself is going to connect both to the proposed commercial section and the housing? Or is it just for the housing?
Just for the housing at this point, but
Okay.
certainly, we would work with them to provide shared cross access and easement. And so considering that the ownership is the same between the two, we would expect to be able to get that agreement for the future commercial development.
And that would
Mr.
come at
Bond?
plating point. Oh, sorry.
Yes, and thank you, Don. So to clarify, the distance from the intersection along Kegley will not be determined by TxDOT, as long as, it'll be measured certainly by our staff, but from the right of way.
You're talking about back from the intersection with Adams and Kegley.
Right, or just the Kegley intersection. So
Right.
West Adams.
No, but I
that'll be a
mean,
TxDOT.
you're going to be, or Don is talking about coming, how far back from the connection with West Adams that entrance will be. Don says yes.
Okay,
My point being, I hate to see traffic coming out here, running into traffic, turning off of Adams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, obvious points.
sure,
Obviously, I'm not a traffic person. I just hate it.
sure.
Kegley is still one lane there, correct?
Still at this point, but a
Well, no, I'm
continuous
sorry.
turn
I
lane.
should have, with the expansion, that close to that intersection, is it still one lane?
Yes.
And Don, there would be a continuous turn lane
One
Kegley,
lane in
correct?
each direction with the continuous center turn lane is
Yeah.
the street section.
It will be. You're-
Yes, ma'am.
When, before all of this is built, presumably.
At the present time, the status of Kegley is Atmos is actively relocating the gas line, which is the last
Right.
step before we're able to start construction. So while I can't speak to the timing of this
Sure.
construction, the construction on Kegley is imminent.
Is more imminent.
It's imminent.
Don't want to use the word imminent. Okay. All right, thank you.
Staff is satisfied with the ability of Kegley to handle that traffic coming out the back.
Yes, sir.
Okay, council, any further discussion on this?
No.
All right, this item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Gloria, just, do we have anybody? Okay. Mr. Lytle. Pardon? Okay, well, Mr. Lytle first. No, you go ahead.
My name is Alan Lytle, live at 504B Paseo del Plata, Temple, Texas. I've saved it to this last one. We have just tonight added enough housing to require at least 3 additional police officers, another fire truck, and hopefully a few garbage men. So please be sure and keep that in mind as we keep expanding the city. Don't put a strain on our already fantastic public servants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lytle, the DRC Design Review Committee does take that into account as they're reviewing all these things. I'm sure that's what Brian is about to say.
No, but you're correct.
Wow.
Mr. Deckman?
Yes,
I
good
understand
evening.
that
I just
Mr.
wanted to,
Deckman is on probably to correct something that I should have said.
Great.
well, I'm not going to correct Brian. I'm going to add some detail as I'm prone to do. If anybody's job is to be corrected, it's Brian's job to correct me. To the questions and concerns about the traffic noted, and TxDOT has requested a formal TIA for that entrance onto West Adams. And I'm not an engineer, so I won't speculate on what the recommendations out of that TIA might be. But they will be addressed.
BIA.
Traffic
Traffic impact analysis.
Okay.
Lose the jargon, Deckman.
See, I told you he was going to correct me.
Simple counsel.
He has spent way too much time at the MPO. He knows all the jargon.
Just to be cynical about it, and I am about traffic, look at what's happening at the corner of 31st and the Loop with a new gas station coming in. People turning off the loop onto 31st, people turning into the gas station, people pulling out of the gas station, people changing lanes to go into the grocery store mall. Thus my cynical point of view.
Sure.
Council, anything else?
No, sir.
Anybody else on the public hearing portion? Nope. All right, very good. Thank you, sir. At this time, I will close the public hearing, and if there's no further questions from council for Mr. Chandler, I'll entertain a motion on item number 8.
I move to adopt item number 8 as presented with the requirements that were outlined as well.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 8 passes 5-0. Item number 9 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning request from agriculture to planned development general retail district with the future development site plan for a truck stop and travel center on 45.15 plus or minus acres located at 2404 East Highway 36 in Temple, Texas, at the northeast corner of Southeast HK Dodge and Loop, which is Loop 363, and East State Highway 36, which is US 190. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. All right, so here you can see the vicinity map. And so, of course, there's the loop and 190. And so on the right, you can see the full 45 acres. And what is proposed at the intersection there with the loop is 15 acres to be utilized for a truck stop. And the rest would just remain general retail uses by the proposal. And so the property is currently on the market, and so it's under contract for a proposed 15-acre truck stop. There are no plans at this point from the owner to develop the remaining 30 acres. And because a truck stop is not allowed in general retail, but is allowed in the next zoning district up, commercial, staff recommended pulling it down, thinking it's an appropriate location close to Panda, major intersection for a truck stop, but adding the flexibility of having the site plan and having consideration of what that would look like in the future. So they get the use now, and then you all would have a chance to review how the buildings are situated, the circulation, landscaping, and all of that good stuff. And so the plan development generally complies with UDC section 345 for the plan development district. And so here you can see the property, the 45 total acres, and then a residential property to the south. And I believe this gentleman is one of the neighbors. And so a utility map, and so it's important to note that you can see a blue line. So water is accessible to the site, would have to be extended a relatively short distance. But what you don't see is green, except on the other side of the railroad tracks near Panda. And so for future development, they'll either have to work out on-site sewer and work with the county or extend our city sewer line. And so the proposed plan development conditions it would be to allow the truck stop / travel center, so it's both of those uses, or any other use permitted within a general retail, applying the general retail development standards. The site plan review and approval for the 15 acres for the truck stop and travel center would have to come back to planning and zoning and city council in the future once they have designed it. So the idea was to get approval for the use, and then they can invest in the design if this gets approved. And then providing screening per UDC section 7.7. And then, of course, a subdivision plat prior to any site development. 10 notices were mailed out, and 2 were received in opposition, and those are 2 residential properties to the south, and 1 response in favor. So staff recommends approval with the following plan development conditions, which, let me see, pardon me. Those conditions have disappeared. Okay, well, I can pull up those conditions in the packet if you like, but yeah, I apologize.
Brian, I
for
think
that.
you may just need to go back one more slide. There you go.
Oh, those, yeah, sorry, yes, that's it. Thank you, Brent. I knew it was there, and apparently I talked about it.
Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler on this?
Yes, I have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Since the sewer line is not available to this site at this point, hypothetically, this could be approved. The purchase of the property could go through. The sewer line, they could then decide they don't want to pay to connect to the sewer line.
Sure.
Or we could say, we're not going to run the sewer line to do it.
Sure.
And the process, the plan that we're looking at would collapse, so to speak. That would not be going in. They would not go through with the sale. That's what I'm trying to say. But this would then go away. A next buyer would have to start all over again.
And so if the zoning were approved,
Uh-huh.
a new buyer or owner, if they proposed a truck stop or travel center, that use would be approved.
Would
but they'd
still
have
be
to-
in place.
But they'd have to come back with the site plan, just as this buyer would have to do as well. And, or they could use any other general retail use, which includes a gas station, for
Which would
instance.
still require
with-
the sewer connection.
Sure.
And they could not, they would have to come back to the city to request septic at some point.
Well, that would be addressed at plating.
Okay.
In terms of
what
ensuring
I'm
that they have
saying, coming
adequate
back.
utilities and so if they do propose septic or on-site sewage, then of course that heavily involves Bell County Health and the sanitarian, and it needs to meet all of their rules and regulations as well.
We've been backed into a corner before.
Mhm.
Someone buying land and then wanting sewer or going to the Bell County to do septic. What risks do we have by voting this through as it stands? I mean, I understand private
Sure.
property, somebody can sell it for what they want, but they're asking us to approve something. What risk do we have?
Well, I can say that one of the examples you're talking about, I think involved annexation. And
The
so,
potential, yes.
and so that was a different situation.
You're
in that,
right.
counting on, sewer to annex. And of course, this is already in the city limits.
Right.
And so if the zoning were approved, they have to make the numbers work to make any of those uses allowed. Otherwise, it's really status quo and it could continue to be farmed.
And we are not backed into a corner where we have to provide the sewer.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you, Ms. Long. Then at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on item number 9 may do so. Mr. Lytle, please step to the
Bless you.
Like
podium
my
and state
name
your
and
name.
address again.
Yes, sir.
Alan Lytle, 2504B, Paseo del Plata, Temple. And since Ms. Long didn't ask about this one this time, I'll have to ask. There's nothing in the site requirements that are going to require an extended, I'd like to call runway or driveway or a way to get traffic out of this truck stop, especially the trucks, to either of the roads, either 36 or the loop, because which is not in the plat. So when they do come for the plat, I would like to have a special use be considered that they have extremely long, like I call runways, which you call entrance ramps on an interstate, because of the fact that even though they show up one truck at a time, it appears many times they leave 5 or 6 of them at a time. They all wake up at the same time and decide to get back on the road. So that makes it extremely difficult and dangerous for the traffic on both 36 and the loop and 95. Thank you.
Thank you. And that will be addressed with the site plan. Very good.
May I ask Mr. Chandler a question?
Let's finish the public hearing first. Ms. Creech?
Dr. Sandra Creech, 504B Paseo del Plata, Temple, Texas, 76502. Having seen one of these truck stops go in at a major intersection in Waco, Texas, the Flying J, and the city having to come back and reinforce that intersection, not once, not twice, but 3 times before they went in and put in enough concrete to build a runway for both the new road and for the entrance ramps or frontage road for I-35. Be aware who's going to pay for that reinforcement, because that's not a cheap thing to have happen, as Waco found out. Please don't, let's put ourselves in that position. So make sure the developer pays for that reinforcement of those roads. Otherwise, you're going to be fixing those roads from now until forever. Thank you.
Our engineers are nodding their heads and behind you.
Is there anybody on the virtual platform? Yes, Mr. Maciek, go ahead.
I'm Ronnie Mosick, 2500 East Highway 36, Temple, Texas. That was my property that was up there. And the concern was, I'm not against truckers or developing. It was the pollution part. I've been living there for years and I've actually watched, farmland with everything growing. But I am in the city limits and I do have water. And what I can't understand, I do have a septic tank. They do not offer me sewer and I still have to pay the sewer bill, sir. So I brought it up to the City of Temple Water Department. They said, well, they go by the usage of the water I use, but I use my own public septic tank. And I don't understand how it's going to operate if they got to use a septic tank for a truck stop. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm not an expert on septic tanks. Would anybody address his concern? I guess it's just more of a billing concern than anything else.
We can certainly get, we can certainly get the billing looked into.
Okay.
I don't think that's probably germane to this decision, so we'll work with him after the meeting to see if we can find out what the problem is and
Okay.
get that corrected.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that needed to speak at the public hearing? All right, then at this time, I'll close the public hearing, and I believe Councilmember Williams has
Yeah,
a
Mr.
question.
Chandler, this is at the intersection of Highway 36, State Highway, and Loop 363. Is that a state road as well, or is that a city road?
City, but TxDOT would certainly be involved with access to 36.
And that brings my point around that TxDOT's going to have a lot to say about the access, the
Yes, sir.
acceleration lanes, the deceleration lanes, and the construction component. And that's something we all need to remind ourselves, if we pass this, when it comes back
Right.
for the actual plan, make sure that's all in place. It's very good to point that out so we have it in our mind.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Richard corrected me. See, that's
Twice today.
twice in 2 presentations. But so the good news is that is still TxDOT, the loop. And so they maintain it and they will have a say on that as well. So,
Both 36 and the loop.
yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I wanted
Yeah.
to clarify.
You're welcome.
Well, they'll have a say on ingress and egress. They won't necessarily have a say on, as Dr. Creech pointed out, construction. That comes back to us at plating.
Right. And so construction drawings and to ensure that they meet our pavement standards, these guys are great at calculating the load and what the pavement can handle.
Well, the good news is if it's a TxDOT road and the road collapses after they build it, they rebuild it. We don't.
Right, sure. So they would consider that and our folks would consider the runway or driveways as were mentioned to ensure that they can handle the load of this volume of 18-wheelers.
I'm sure the developer knows how to do that too. This probably isn't their first one.
My understanding is that the developer has done them elsewhere. I don't know any more than that, though.
Good.
Bottom line is we get another bite at the apple.
Correct. Yes, sir. And so will the neighbors. We'll have an opportunity to look at the site plan, Mr. Bosick, and be able to see, okay, how far are the driveways from his property, and have that conversation and hopefully minimize the impact on his property.
And light trespass and things like that will be discussed at that time.
Correct. Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Yep. Yeah, we don't ever want to approve something where the developer's not a good neighbor. So,
Right.
okay. Very good. Anything else for Mr. Chandler? Council? At this time, I'll entertain a motion then on item number 9.
I'll make a motion to approve item 9.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. This item passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 10 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the annexation of 23.917 plus or minus acres of land situated in the Maximo Merino Survey, abstract number 14, Bell County, Texas, being a section of Old Highway 95 right-of-way commencing approximately 4,250 feet north of its intersection with FM 93, extending approximately 2.01 plus or minus miles south of its intersection with FM 93.
Okay, and if this looks familiar to you, that's because it is. We've had 2 public hearings on this annexation. And so this is just a reminder, it's only Old Highway 95 right-of-way, and the distance of it was in the description. So no private property is included in the request. And this right-of-way annexation is needed for proposed annexation to the south that you can see shown as the Daniel Tract, 229 acres. And so, of course, the petition was approved on January 21st. We had the first and second public hearings on March 4th and 5th. And this is the first reading, and the second reading will be on the 15th. And so the municipal service plan was required for this and circulated to all departments. There were no issues, and there are no capital improvements proposed as part of this annexation. And I'd be happy to answer any question. And also just a reminder that this was initiated by Bell County.
Council, any questions or discussion? Item number 10 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Or I'm getting a head nod that there's nobody on the virtual platform. No one coming forward. So I'll close the public hearing on item number 10. And council, if you don't have any discussion or items for Mr. Chandler, I will entertain a motion on that item.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing the annexation of the 23.917 acres. And this has been brought to us by Bell County.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Item number 10 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 11, which is to consider adopting a resolution approving the final plat of Blackland Ranch with the developer requested exception to the Unified Development Code, Section 8.2.1.d.4, related to projection of streets, being a 73.1 plus or minus acre, 210 lot, 14 block, 5-tract residential subdivision located east of South Fifth Street and south of Blackland Drive, addressed as 4501 South Fifth Street. Chandler.
All right, thank you. I promise this is my last one, and I hope my presentation is shorter than the item description. And so this is in TMed South, and this is a proposed final plat on 73 acres, 210 lot, 14 block, 5-track residential subdivision, of course, zone TMed South. The smallest lot being 2880 square feet, and these are for future townhomes along a future South First Street extension, largest lot being 25,000 and some change. In the Temple Independent School District, the Development Review Committee reviewed this on December 7th. And then there was a lot of discussion and so it was deemed administratively complete on March 11th this year. And so just some select standards that this development would comply with in TMed, just a little bit of extra, no quiz at the end. But rear-loaded parking and garages from the alleys for the townhomes, which is a TMed standard. The 2 residential trees per lot and 2 shrubs. Canopy street trees spaced every 35 feet. Sidewalks on every street. And all proposed overhead utilities will be underground. So they would no longer be overhead. So looking at the final plat, I also just wanted to point out parks that are compliant with the TMed intent, and that is with pocket parks in the middle, along with some amenities along South First Street. And then they have drainage areas along the perimeter that could function as both trail space or have some active park space beyond the drainage facilities. So we've been working closely with their engineers and our engineers and parks to be able to do that. And then there's a trail easement that would connect to the future Georgetown Railroad trail, once that is constructed, and trail easements from the pocket parks. And we've also been in discussions with them about potentially looking at trailheads for the Georgetown Railroad project, either within existing parks per this plan or future lots. So point is, P&Z approved the private parks that are part of this development. And so it's more of just a heads up to you all. In terms of street cross-section, you can see they've got 50-foot streets with sidewalks and the street trees, and then 70 feet of right-of-way for South First Street to build that future community collector, extend it through the neighborhood. And so the reason that it's here, but before you all, is the UDC exception for street projections of 821D in the Unified Development Code. And so technically a street would be required to the east. Of course, we have the railroad there, and so that makes it less feasible, but ultimately we'd also want to limit the impact on the Georgetown Railroad Trail or Union Pacific line. Of course, those converge near this property. So staff supports that exception and recommends approval of the final plat and the street projection exception. P&Z recommended approval at their March 1st meeting, in addition to approving the parks exception. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant may be participating virtually if you had questions for him as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Council, any questions?
Only a remark.
Yes, ma'am.
If the applicant is participating virtually and they're called Cactus Jacks, bring back Cactus Jacks at the same time.
Okay.
Please. It
That was
looks lovely.
That was a good chicken salad.
It was. A good a lot of things.
Very good. Anything else besides salad remarks? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, I'll entertain a motion on item number 11.
Mayor, I
Motion
make
to
a
approve.
motion.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Motion to approve item 11.
I'll second that motion.
You have a motion by Councilmember Walker, a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item number 11 passes 5 votes to 0. Item number 12 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a contract amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Casberg Patrick and Associates LP of Temple for design phase services for the corporate hangar Phase 4 project in the amount of $121,300. Mr. Parker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How's everybody? In December of 2019, Council had approved the initial design of our corporate hangar to accommodate requests to build a hangar. As you see on the map, that design was going to take care of the 2 open spots in yellow boxes at the top of the photo. Since that time, we've had different changes in our requests and needs for the corporate hangar area, and to which we have decided that we might as well go ahead and do the entire design of the entire corporate hangar area to accommodate the newer needs of our corporate friends here in our community. This amendment went before the RZ board on March 24th and was approved for recommendation. And I'm here before you to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Council, we've discussed this a couple of times. Anybody have any additional input, questions, thoughts?
Just a reminder, I'll be abstaining on this.
Yes, sir. Okay, if there are no questions, then council will entertain a motion on item number 12.
Make a motion to approve item 12.
Second that motion.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would please cast your vote. Item number 12 passes with 4 yes votes and 1 abstention. Moving on to item number 13 is consider adopting a resolution appointing members to various city boards and commissions. Ms. Llewellyn.
Council, the item you have before you tonight is the appointments for the boards and commissions. I kind of feel like I want to break out in song and dance, but I'm not good at either one, so I won't. So I'm going to just go through this presentation really quickly. You know, we've been working on this for, gosh, I gave this same presentation with nothing but blank. So now that it's all filled in, but I gave this presentation last December. Y'all did the moratorium last spring, so this has really been ongoing for a year. So I'm really excited to read these names in tonight for the record. So just going to go right into the first one, just for an overview. Everything in black, all the names in black are the existing incumbent members who are currently serving terms that have not expired yet. So I'll just read the names in red. These are new members or reappointments of existing members. So for the Airport Advisory Board, we have Tony Hill, Nick Steenson, Marty Janzak, and Mike Beavers. For the Animal Services Advisory Board, we have Lance Cruz, Amy Strunk, Susan Long, and Carol Owen. Building and Standards Commission, we have Charlie Ayers, Jack Barton, Derek Marshall, Robert Bass, Brad Phillips, and Rosa Hernandez. We still do have some vacancies on this board and we'll be gathering some more applications in the upcoming weeks. Citizens Police Advisory Commission, we have Caitlin West, Gregory Gregg, Alan Lytle, Kim White, Sharon Rose, Gary Smith, Eric Stahlbaum, Brian Reinhardt, and Lydia Alanis. Development Standards Advisory Board, we have Jeffrey Schneider, Jimmy Pabilski, Billy Jack Little, Chuck Luco, Joey Agee, and Andrew Janzak. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, we have Benny Walsh, Jennifer Rojas Klaus, Lexi McBride, Bill Leak, Richard Walker, Jordan Valentine, Elena Adelet, Gil Hawley, and Steve Jackson. Emergency Services Advisory Board, we have Deontay Davis, Ina Turner, Sandra Creech, Brent Blumenthal, Richard Arwood, Rachel Hadamenos, Brandon Velez and Byron Shelton. We do have one vacancy on here for District 2 that we'll be filling. Historic Preservation Board, we have Kay Guida, Beth Mackey, Alice Bartley, Guy Fowler, Jeff Swindoll, Kelly Garcia, and Michael Gonzalez. Library Advisory Board, Kathy Greco, Erica Mendoza, Gloria Knutson, Katara Monroe Woodbury, Robin Daydig, and James Stafford. For the Main Street Advisory Board, we have Brian Flores, Jacob Bates, Patrick Guillen, Joe Shepard, David Patrick, Charlie Ayers, Christine Parks, Rod Henry, Amanda Carlson, Brooke Fowler, Lois Ryder, and Meg Petruka. And council will be appointing the RZ board member shortly. Neighborhood Revitalization Advisory Board, we have Susan Luck, Manuel Alanese, Anna Morris, Robert Beeman, Cameron Bentz, Shannon Myers, Lester Fettig, Caleb Longino, and Zoe Grant. Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we have Doug Smith, Alicia Dawson, Joey Agee, Heather Smith, Steve Jackson, Scott Keela, and Bill Leake. We do have 2 vacancies for District 2. Planning and Zoning Commission will be reappointing Jeremy Langley, Paulino Castillo, Daniel Jeans, and our new member is JD McBride. Reinvestment Zone, we have Michelle DeGatano, Mike Pilkington, Raymond Smith, Blake Pitts, John Mayo, and John Keela. And the Zoning Board of Adjustments, last but not least, we have Christy Andrews, Robert Bass, Mike Pilkington, Jeremy Langley, Lee Armstrong, Kelly Garcia, Richard Hernandez, Zoe Grant, and Andrew Janzak. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, any questions for Ms. Llewellyn?
No, I would just like to make a point. It's odd that there is a council member serving on one board as a voting member. That's required by state law.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, that's why my name appears
A municipal
on the Animal
official.
Services Board.
Very good. This is the end of a long road, but the beginning of a longer road. So council and staff, thank you all for hanging with us and getting all this done. It's taken a long time, but I think the city will be better off for it. So council, if no one has any further comments, I will entertain a motion on item number 13.
Mayor, I make a motion for approval for item number 13.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Williams. Council, if you would please cast your vote. Nobody's allowed to vote no on this one. By the way, very good. Item number 13 passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 14 is to consider adopting a resolution designating the chair of the Tax Increment Financing Reinvestment Zone Number 1 Board of Directors to fill a term ending December 31st, 2021. Ms. Myers.
Mayor and council, you had discussed in your work session on Monday appointing Brian Daniel to fill the chair position. You are required by state law to establish the chair, and the term does expire at the end of the calendar year per state law as well.
And I confirmed with a few members of the RZ today to be sure that Mr. Daniel was still their choice, and it was confirmed that he was. So I'll entertain a motion on item number 14 to designate Brian Daniels as the chair of the reinvestment zone.
Sorry, computer's hung up.
Excuse me?
The
Computer's not working.
PrimeGov was hung up, but it's spinning. Oh, there it goes.
Okay. We need a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve item 14 as presented by the city manager, Bryn Myers.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item number 14 passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 15 is to consider adopting a resolution appointing 3 members to the Temple Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors.
Mayor and council, at your work session on Monday, you discussed reappointing Steve Wright and Sanjanet Crossley. They both are current sitting members of TEDC in good standing with terms remaining. And then the contract that you have with TDC requires that the reinvestment zone chair also be a member of the Temple Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. So you would also, at this point, to fulfill that contractual obligation, you would need to appoint Brian Daniel to the board as well.
Thank you, ma'am. I will entertain a motion on item number 15 to appoint Brian Daniel as the RZ Chair and reappoint Steve Wright and Sanjanet Crossley to the Temple Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the reappointments of Steve Wright, Sanjanet, and Brian Daniels, Chair of the RZ.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales and a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item number 15 passes 5 votes to 0. Thank you all for attending tonight and happy Easter to everyone. And this meeting is adjourned.